Problem in India is because there are no jobs, we are getting mobs. And unfortunately, the media is hell bent on making mob lynching a Hindu Muslim issue. It is not a Hindu Muslim issue.
But don't you think that the Muslim community is the target of such acts of mob lynching? Because, out of the 63 incidents that have happened over the years, more than 20 are against a particular community. So there is certain section of media which is saying that, this narrative is being, spun to, suit the political perspective of a certain group. So don't you think the Muslim are being the soft targets?
Shreya, you're politically correct. I'm politically incorrect. So let me say, yes, there is targeted lynching of Muslims and Dalits. That is happening simply because it suits the central government to polarize the situation. It energizes its mass base, that 18-19% that voted for this government. However, anybody who says that lynchings will be restricted to only Muslims and Dalits is completely unaware of how lynchings work. I've given you the example of Ravindra, a Hindu, a fan of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a Swachh Bharat promoter who was lynched simply because he asked people not to urinate here. There are a number of women in Uttar Pradesh, there are a number of women in Jharkhand, where we are going tomorrow, who are lynched because they're called witches. Tomorrow, once mobs start taking over, once we start having vigilante justice, somebody may not like the kind of clothes you are wearing, somebody may not like the kind of the person I am with. Mobs have no right to dispense justice. Mobs definitely do not have a right to enter your bedroom, to enter your kitchen, to see what meat you're eating, or who you're with in your house, or who you're with in your bedroom. That is extrajudicial, extra constitutional, and nobody has that authority.
So the people who commit such acts, what I notice and what, according to media reports, they are enjoying a certain culture of impunity. How can we get over that and instill some sense of fear and accountability in their heads? Currently, IPC doesn't have the mention of the word lynching. You're talking about Masuka. You've drafted the law. That law has been presented. So how do you think of going about it? Or how do you think that will help?
Let me take it one by one. So research shows that most lynchings happen when the economy collapses and the GDP falls down. No coincidence that since 2014 your GDP is continuously been falling despite low oil prices. Point number 2. Research again shows most people involved in lynching or these mob acts are people between the age of 25 to 45. So we have young India doing this kind of barbaric act. It is very, Kanhaiya told me something very interesting, that you have young India involved in the acts, this barbaric act, which is प्राचीन, जो यूरोप में 18वीं शताब्दी में होता था या अमेरिका में उस वक्त होता था. So you have people from the 18th century, 15th century Europe indulging in this act in modern India, filming this act on 3G, 4G, Samsung, iPhone, your latest technology phones. So using the latest technology to spread hate on the most barbaric act. So there is obviously some amount of impunity, which is why you are able to get away with WhatsApp, and that's where spreading this on WhatsApp or social media, and that's where Masuka comes in. Masuka is not drafted by me, it's drafted by members of civil society across various sections of civil society who've come together, and I think have formed a brilliant legislation that sort of looks at containing mob violence and vigilantism. And I think that once this government takes up this law, we will be able to bring most of these cases to a closure, as well as be able to prevent further cases to a large extent.
Do you think you'll be able to garner enough support for Masuka?
Swara Bhaskar drafted a petition to the Prime Minister and asked him to implement Masuka. We've also left a copy of the law with the Honorable Prime Minister's office, and we're seeking time from the Honorable Law Minister. In a few days, we'll be meeting the Honorable Law Minister once he gives us time. 11 political parties have come on board and they're supporting Masuka. A number of retired Supreme Court judges and High Court judges. In fact, yesterday we were with KTS Tulsi ji, who's a constitutional expert, and a number of them have gone through this law, and they find this law within the framework of our constitution. So I think that there is this law fits within our constitution. It remains for the government to introduce this law and the wisdom of parliament to pass this law that can prevent it, that can prevent such acts.
So talking about Masuka, can you just brief us a little bit about how it is going to help the victims of such acts get speedy justice, compensation and a fair pro?
First of all, for any justice to be dispensed, you first need to have the crime registered. In our CRPC or in our IPC, in the Indian laws, there is no definition for lynching. Once you have no definition for lynching or for mob violence, how will you ever punish the perpetrators of the crime? So the first thing we've done is we've defined lynching, we've defined what is mob violence. Point number 2, anywhere where mob violence happens, it is mandatory that a minimum compensation of 25 lakh for injury be given to the victim, and above that, this is for injury, that can be above, that's for the state government. Why is this important? This is important because you were there day before yesterday, we saw the family of Tehseen Khan, they've come on the streets. We've seen the family of Junaid, they've come on the streets. Even Ajib's family has no income, and lots of, even Ravindra's a rickshaw driver, he's been lynched. You see, a person is not lynched, the entire family is lynched, the entire family comes on the road. So lynching needs to ensure, when an act of lynching happens, it is mandatory, and it should be mandatory that the state government compensates and rehabilitates the person. Apart from this, what we have is the police's responsibility in an act of lynching. Anywhere where a lynching happens, the police officer, the local police officer, suspended immediately until a magistrate inquiry within a certain time frame clears him or her. Why do we say this? Because we don't believe that the police does not know that 300 people have accumulated with swords, knives, guns, and can enter your bedroom to see who you're with, or have entered your kitchen to see who you're with. Either that is an intelligence failure, or the police are completely hand in glove. If there is no complicity of the police as found by the magistrate, the police can rejoin duty immediately. All such cases would require a time-bound probe, a time-bound trial. The trial goes to a magistrate with experience of not less than 7 years. You can go to High Court not just on fact of law but even on facts of the case, so you have more chances of justice being dispensated to you. We've set up SOPs for the police to follow, so guidelines that have to be followed, so there can be no local pressure, because you've seen, as again, I go back to the case of Tehseen Khan because that's the most recent case. You've seen how local administration, including, and I say this with great sorrow, local courts are complicit in letting go of people who are involved in such activities. Tehseen Khan's son has an FIR. Those who are on record killing the person are out on bail and not gone one day to the police station.
So, since we're talking about Tehseen Khan had mentioned 6 names in his dying declaration, right? So now we don't have Masuka. And the police had said that there was no evidence against those. So if we had Masuka, would the police be held accountable for such a effort of botching up?
Yes, because first of all, the local officer would have been suspended immediately when when these 6 people who've been let off stopped Tehseen Khan and his family and the other people from transporting those cows. The police, it was the duty, and the police were duty bound by law to stop this incident from happening. Point number 2, having said that the incident has happened, there would be no way the police can get away. They would be duty bound to keep reporting to a magistrate and to the High Court as to what action has been taken and updating it. Also, you've seen in the case of Tehseen Khan, his son keeps telling how the police and the administration keep scaring him, telling him, do not come to this place, do not come here. All of this would not happen because you've had witness protection, you would have all these things. In the case of Junaid, 300 people saw the killing, but nobody is come in as a witness. So Masuka also has provisions for witness protection. All of this is very important to for saving lives. I go back to the case of Ravindra. I go back to these women in Uttar Pradesh who are being killed. You've heard of these Choti killing. Somebody's called a witch. They go just brutally murder these women. Child lifters. So at the end of the day, this is not about cow, it is about mob taking the law into their own hands and no witnesses coming up, false information being disseminated through WhatsApp and other social media groups, rumor mongers creating mischief, and the guilty and if anybody's caught, only the foot soldiers, the guilty always get away because they're complicit with the local administration. Masuka prevents all of that.
Also, I was going to social media, there was some question saying that what if this law is misused? Now, I've also read in the draft that designated judges will be designated, right? Not every judge will be able to look after the case. So can you just tell me a few details about that?
Yeah, you see, of course, I will not get away from the fact that no law can be misused. But then, why did we have the special SC/ST Act when violence against human beings is anyways? Or why did we have the POSCO Act when anyways you have rape is a crime? Or today, why are women asking for marital rape laws? Because, I mean, rape is anyways a crime. However, marital rape is not a crime in India. You can get away with it. So, why do you require specific laws? Because you require specific laws because at that time, it is the need of the hour. So, we require specific laws now. We've put in as much safeguards as we can to ensure that there is no miscarriage of justice, because the case is to be investigated and reported by the IG of police, and to be and a magistrate is the one who overlooks it. So at some point we've put in institutional checks and balances to prevent misusing of the law. Also, the terminology we've used is vulnerable people. So anyone can be vulnerable. You please understand what I'm saying. A lot of times people say the word minority is Hindu or Muslim or religious, but minority does not always mean religious. For example, Shreya, you could be Hindu, but in Bengal you could be a linguistical minority because you don't know how to speak Bengali, or in Maharashtra you could be a linguistical minority because you don't know how to speak Marathi. I'm just saying it as an example. So minority does not always mean religious minority. So we should not have people being killed on the basis of hatred, on the basis of love, religion, who they are with, what food they eat, who they are traveling with. I think these are barbaric. I think it is for an older generation. I don't think it suits young India, and I think we need a law to stand up against this. What is your Romeo Scott that the Uttar Pradesh police has done? Why is the Uttar Pradesh government bothered with who in whose bedroom? It's not the job of the Uttar Pradesh government to see. They don't have oxygen cylinders for kids and they are checking who's in whose bedroom. So I think at some point this needs to come to an end. You cannot have vigilante justice in any civilized society, definitely not in any democracy.
So vigilantism is also been justified by certain administrational heads as well when it is on a particular community. And I'm coming back to this because I'm seeing not only me, there are reports about mob lynching on a particular community. Don't you think, apart from the economical part, it is being encouraged and fanned by certain ideological beliefs?
See, when Prime Minister Modi went to Israel, he met Moshe there. Moshe was a victim of terrorism. His parents died in 2611. You're from Mumbai. How many times did Prime Minister Modi meet Ravindra's family? A rickshaw driver who was his fan stays in Delhi, stays half an hour away from the Prime Minister's house. Did the Prime Minister meet him? So why was that mob injustice not being condoned? But that is one example. In the case of Najib, his mom was dragged by the Delhi police. Now, and you've seen how hard the Delhi High Courts come on the Delhi police. Now you come to the case of Pehlu Khan and the case of Akhlaq. In the case of Akhlaq, in 28 we finish, there's Akhlaq's death anniversary, and it's very unfortunate that we are going to talk about that. A union minister, Mahesh Sharma, draped a tricolor. Today Air Marshal has passed away. We're draping a tricolor on him. Akhlaq's murderers was given that respect that we are giving the Air Marshal who served our country. Thus, doesn't Mahesh Sharma have any shame? Shouldn't Mahesh Sharma be told off? Isn't this encouraging vigilantism? Gulab Chand Kataria, what did he say in the case of Pehlu Khan? What did he say in the what were the other bigots saying in the case of Junaid? This encourages these elements, and I come back to it that these elements are being encouraged by these people behind the scenes.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi, on few times he said that cow vigilantism is under the garb of cow vigilantism, certain anti-social elements are indulging in the act, and which he doesn't approve. Even after that, 32 out of the 62 cases of incidents have happened in BJP ruled states, though it is not only after 2014, 2010 to 2000, like the recent one. So what do you have to say regarding that? Is everybody not taking the Prime Minister seriously, or are the laws not strict enough?
One, there are no laws for it. We've just discussed that. There's nothing in the IPCA. There's nothing for mob violence. So I mean, there is no question of justice coming because there's no laws for it. As so far as the Prime Minister speaking, let's begin from where the Prime Minister spoke. The first time the Prime Minister spoke is when the Una incident happened and the Dalits were whipped in the middle of the road and they were beaten up. Jignesh, one of our people in Team Masuka, one of our core members, he's the one who started the agitation. What did Prime Minister Modi say? He came on television and he said, इन्हें मत मारो मुझे मारो. Now you see, the Prime Minister of the world's largest democracy should not be talking juvenile stuff as inhe mat maro mujhe maro. Nobody should be killed in a democracy. Those who kill should be behind the jail, should be behind bars. Why isn't the Prime Minister talking about justice there? Today, Una's been more than a year. What justice has been given to the Una victims? Special courts were to be set up, nothing has happened. The Prime Minister came on TV, cried, said inhe mat maro mujhe maro. In the meanwhile, I went to Supreme Court on the writ petition on cow vigilantism. Till date, I am telling you, Shreya, till today, as of now, this evening, the central government's not replied to the notice of the Supreme Court. It's not replied in writing. If the Prime Minister is so serious about fighting this injustice, why doesn't he reply to my writ petition? He's not replying to it. Come to the second time the Prime Minister spoke. He spoke more about cows than about human beings. The third time the Prime Minister spoke, his people like Pravin Togadia and the other VHP bigots came out and said, we will continue to do what we want. They have ambulances for cows in Gorakhpur. They don't have oxygen for kids out there. And the amount of rumors and myth they spread around the cows, which is another aspect altogether. I'm not getting into it. For example, a cow gives out oxygen. I mean, I don't know where they get their scientific knowledge from. Maybe Yale University, but I don't want to go into that. That's a different aspect. The amount of lies and rumors they spread. The problem is that the Prime Minister does not condemn this enough. Yes, he says things for the camera. He says it because Al Jazeera, CNN, BBC, Washington Post, New York Times is condemning him. So he says it for the camera, but it's not stringent, because if he's stringent, all he has to do, he has to act on my PIL. All he has to do is he has to reply to the Supreme Court. The next date is on the 22nd. Why doesn't he walk the talk? The Supreme Court told him to cut down on this.
So the government clearly has not been strict on this act of cow vigilantism, which is taking lives, claiming lives. It should be even more stricter, is what you say.
Absolutely. Nobody should be allowed to get away with this kind of vigilantism. Let me tell you something very interesting. When I was researching today, you spoke about Prime Minister Modi feeling very bad and saying ये गाँव रक्षक नहीं गाँव भक्षक है और 70% 80% गौरख धंधा करते. I'm quoting the Prime Minister. Where did this गाँव रक्षक thing start from? The first state to encourage it in 2003 was a man called the then Chief Minister of Gujarat, Narendra Damodar Modi. He was the one giving them cash rewards for doing this. So it is started, this cycle of hatred is started from the Prime Minister, and he's implemented the Gujarat model all across India. This hatred and bigotry started from there.
My last question would be, there are people who are asking, could this be a political gimmick? So what would be your answer to them?
I would tell these people, I am going to the Honorable Law Minister. I have already given the petition to the Honorable Prime Minister. Why doesn't he pass it, take all the credit? He's already come on TV, made 3 speeches, 1 crying and 2 speeches. He passes it, takes the credit. I will walk away tomorrow. I have no intention of taking credit. My petition's in the Supreme Court. Why doesn't he reply to it, given writing to the Honorable Chief Justice of the Supreme Court? Henceforth, no violence will happen, and take responsibility for it. Instead, in Supreme Court, he says law and order is not his problem. I didn't know the Prime Minister is not responsible for law and order. This is something new that I've heard for the first time. He's supposed to guarantee my constitutional safety. He's saying he's not responsible for it. I am saying I may be politically against the Prime Minister. Forget me. I am a nobody. Let the Prime Minister pass the law. Let Parliament pass the law. He has a majority. Let him remove an ordinance tomorrow. I promise you I will only support the Prime Minister if he removes an ordinance. Defeat me politically. Why even give me this political platform to build this up? Let the Prime Minister take the opportunity.
Okay, Tehseen, thank you so much for sharing your inputs, and we really hope this law is legislated, and we hope something specifically for mob lynching happens. So thank you so much, and thank you for watching. Thank you.